call to order the meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, December 20, 2022. Clerk?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We have 12 members present in the room and voting in civic clerk. Tonight we are joined by Deputy Clerk Fugie, who will be shadowing me for future meetings. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Clerk. Please rise now for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation led by Alder Jim Hutchison. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alder Hutchison.
You may be seated. We, the 12 alders, and the mayor, and the city staff representatives meet during this common council meeting to serve our community, to use our resources wisely, to represent all members of our community fairly, and to make decisions that promote the common good. May we act appropriately using our experiences, knowledge, and foresight, and may we listen to those who give testimony tonight, be they constituents, city staff, committee members, or consultants, in order to make effective decisions. Isaac Asimov, a writer with an uncanny ability to anticipate future human endeavors, said, "No sensible decision can be made any longer without taking into account not only the world as it is, but the world as it will be." Thank you.
Thanks for those words, Alder. On to approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve the minute, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any changes to be made there?
Mayor?
Yeah. Attorney Bunger.
Just reviewing some of the minutes, when Law Department was reviewing some of the discussion regarding St. John's CUP, there were some inaccuracies or some errors in the minutes that should be corrected. The first is the initial motion that was made by Alder Scannell to approve, seconded by Hutchinson. It said that the motion passed, but there was never a vote on that because amendments were offered. So that section should be removed. And then secondly, Alder Johnson made a motion to amend the CUP so that the increase in the number of beds was just for 9 months. Again, no vote was ever taken on this motion, but the minutes say that the motion was passed. So the minutes should just be amended to reflect taking out that the motions were passed, and then everything else should be correct.
Sounds good.
So moved.
Alder Scannell makes that amendment, seconded by Alder Stoyer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
Motion to approve as amended.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve these minutes as amended. That was seconded by Alder Stevens. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. Approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Galvin. Any changes here? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. On to report by the mayor. Just a couple quick things. One, sort of technical Robert's rules related. One thing that I was observing is just how many parking ordinances this body deals with. So one thing I wanted to mention to all of you is the possibility of doing a first and final reading on sort of the customary parking regulations that are changed. So if there aren't any objections to that, that might be something that you'll see changed on the agenda in future meetings. But just let me know if you have any concerns or questions about that. Otherwise, it just felt like, it was taking up a little bit of time that we could streamline, so. And then, of course, we have a few holidays on the horizon here. So just wanted to wish a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to our council and to our residents. We're also in the midst of Hanukkah, so Happy Hanukkah to all who are celebrating. It's a wonderful season in this community, and so just want to extend my season's greetings to all of you and to all of our residents, and hope you have a really Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. So with that, we'll move along to announcements from our council. Alder Eck?
And maybe you would say this at the end, but I just wanted to make sure that, to acknowledge that this is Chief Litton's last city council of his career. And so I just want to thank him for his service to our city.
Absolutely. Very well said. Other-
A request to put the camera on him so we can see.
In that suit?
Maybe we'll get a few words.
Yeah. No, I think everybody should see that. Absolutely. Any words for us, Chief?
Sure. I would just, say that the 10 years has flown by. It's been a remarkably great adventure. It's 10 years later. I'm 20 pounds fatter. But I've got a heart full of joy and thankfulness. And I really want to thank the council and the mayor, former council members over the last 10 years, Mayor Schmidt, and especially the citizens of this community that support our fire department every single day. And I really, thank the members. They're the best.
Absolutely.
They really are the best. Let me finish that off. They are really the best, most educated, professional, hardworking, caring people that I've ever worked around. And I'm thankful to have been able to do that. So, and with that, as I fade off into a fixed income, my suit and I will be in the back of the room tonight, signing autographs and taking pictures for $5. Thank you, Mayor.
Nice.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you, Chief, and, we were talking earlier today for your final performance evaluation, which will be glowing, of course. But you had said it's a bittersweet moment for you, and I said it's just bitter for us, because we're losing a tremendous fire chief and somebody who's led this, the department, with incredible integrity and honor, and I've just appreciated, your advice and counsel and your leadership throughout the 10 years. So thank you for everything.
Thank you again.
Other announcements? Alder Morgan.
I just want to thank my elf, Alder Stevens, for all the treats he's given all of us. I kind of dropped the ball there.
You can't do it all on your own.
I know.
You need help. Thank you. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move along to appointments.
Motion to approve.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve the reappointment. That was seconded by Alder Galvin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. On to ordinance's second reading for adoption.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to suspend the rules and take up these ordinances with one roll call vote. Seconded by Alder Stevens. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the rules are suspended.
Motion to adopt.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to adopt these ordinances. Seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? We will use the board.
Thank you, you may vote.
Yes, I'm locked.
Okay. Alder Brunette votes yes.
Thank you. And may display.
And those ordinances are adopted unanimously. On to the Landmarks Commission.
Motion to approve.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve. That was seconded by Alder Hutchison. Alder Brunette, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We have Mr. Garrett Bader. He had texted me, so
I don't know if he wanted to speak, but I'm guessing he does, so I'd like to make a motion to open the floor.
Right, yeah, just before we do that, maybe just, we'll go to Attorney Bungert to kind of explain the process
You
for
bet.
all of us. Attorney Bungert, if you could?
Yes, so, as some of you may be aware, this is proceeding as an appeal out of Landmarks Commission. So it's gonna proceed as a quasi judicial hearing. And so the goal of council is to provide and conduct a hearing that is fair in form, appearance, and substance, much like a courtroom proceeding. To ensure that this hearing satisfies these goals, each member of the council must confirm a couple items. First is that you do not have any interest or conflict of interest in the matter, or that you haven't received any communication from any person or party. So now would be the time to present or state any conflicts of interest that could recuse you from participation in the hearing and the deliberations. And then secondly, if you've had any ex parte communications, meaning if you've discussed the matter with staff, discussed the matter with the appellant, whether or not you have reached out to the appellant or the appellant has reached out to you, or vice versa, or regarding, or with staff for that matter, now would be the time to state those for the record. If you've had ex parte communications, they don't necessarily automatically disqualify you from participating. However, in order to maintain impartiality and a complete record, those communications should be stated for the record, the nature of the communication, and then you, as a member of the body, would have to decide for yourself whether you can still maintain an impartial approach to the deliberations and the decisions before you. So I would open it up. If any council members would like to recuse themselves or state anything for the record, I'll leave it to the chair to recognize members of the body.
Okay, sounds good. And I guess I'll kick things off. I did have a discussion with the appellant just at a very surface level that this was coming onto the agenda and was hoping for a good discussion. So I feel like I am impartial and able to vote if necessary, if there's a tie vote among the members. Others, Alder Scannell.
Yes, I also had a communication both with the appellate and with a member of the Landmarks Commission. And by the time of those communications with both, I already made my decision pretty much which way I'm going. So it wasn't, I don't feel like I'm still open to discussion and possibly changing my mind. But I have a way I'm leaning, and I've been leaning that way even before those discussions.
Thank you, Alder. We'll just go down the line, maybe. Alder Brunette.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I did, this was in November 30th, I had received a message from Mr. Bader, and it's not uncommon for he and I to discuss certain projects throughout the city, especially those near my district. And he had just forwarded me a story in the Press Times, and then I mentioned that I read the article and that was aware of the situation. And we were supposed to have a phone conversation, but that never happened. Things just fell through, which is probably a good thing. So the last contact I had made was reference that there was a member of the public that sent a letter to, I'm assuming, all council members in support of what Mr. Bader was intending to do. But I don't think in any way whatsoever am I swayed. I believe I can be 100% impartial in the matter.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Eck.
Pretty similar to what Alder Brunette said, did get contacted by, what are we calling the appellant? Mr. Bader. And then after that, I did watch the Landmark Commission meeting so that I could be more informed. So, but I feel like I'd be impartial.
Very good. Alder Steuer.
Thank you, Your Honor. I also was contacted by Mr. Bader. I used to be on the Landmarks Commission as well, so I have my opinions and ideas of things over time. Like Alder Scannell, I think I had my mind kind of made up as well, but I think that I can still move forward.
Okay, sounds good. Alder Wery.
Sure, it's confessional time. No. I don't think any of us probably thought this was a quasi judicial hearing, to be fair. So I contacted staff and asked some questions, and I contacted Mr. Beatty. He didn't contact me, just asked some questions, and good luck trying to sway my mind. I always make up my own, so thanks.
Thanks, Alder.
Except for you. You swayed me.
Alder Campbell.
Yes, likewise, on top of everybody else, other than, being a business owner, on Main Street in a very old building that goes back into in many days. I have pictures of those buildings, and yes, I had a business, and I put all new windows into my business so that people could see that there was actually a business there after it sat vacant for many, many years, such as the property down the street by Five Corners, which is still vacant and has all kinds of windows in it. So I don't think I've made up my mind from the start, treated it as my own building, my own decisions, and I would be right there.
Alder Galvin?
You're getting into the substance of what we're gonna be discussing. They're just asking if you had any contact with
Well,
anybody about
I'm
it.
pretty new at this, so
I know.
I apologize. I pretty much had my mind made up from the start, so.
Good. Thanks, Alder. Alder Stevens?
Yes, I also, Mr. Bader did reach out to me as well. But I feel I can still be impartial.
Okay. Thanks, Alder. Alder Galvin?
Mr. Bader reached out to me through a text message just to make me aware of the situation. We didn't really have any kind of a substantive discussion on it. I did have a constituent send me an email giving me their viewpoints on how they felt it should go. And I had one other person reach out to me, but I was never able to determine if they're a constituent or not.
Okay. Very good. Alder Morgan?
I do have contact with Mr. Bader quite often because he does do a lot of improvements to my district, and we discussed what was going on, and I feel that my opinion is not going to be changed or anything by my affiliation with him.
Okay. Thank you, Alder. Alder Hutchison?
I was contacted by Mr. Bader, and I received a letter and an email from two different constituents, but I don't think I was influenced more than what I would do just reading about the information. I also read the agenda very thoroughly, so.
Very good. Thanks, Alder.
I
Alder Graham?
also was contacted by Mr. Bader, had two constituents reach out to me, also viewed the Landmarks Commission, so I feel I can be impartial.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Alder Scannell?
I'd just like to amend it, I forgot, I did also receive some emails from other parties supporting Mr. Bader.
Very good. Thank you. Alder Johnson?
Yeah, and obviously, this happens every meeting. He's got something before us. I need to recuse myself from this discussion, from this vote, including if you go into closed session, because Mr. Bader is a member of my executive committee that oversees my compensation.
Very good. Thanks, Alder. Attorney Bungert?
So just a couple follow-up questions from Alder Scannell and Alder Stoyer and Alder Campbell. In order to proceed with the quasi-hearing, we will need to hear on the record whether you can remain impartial. I know you had indicated you had made some opinions, but in order for the quasi to be fair, substantively, and for the record to be clear and complete, you have to make your decisions based on the evidence that's going to be presented in front of you today. Understanding that you have had communications and you've had some information presented to you, you have to confirm on the record that you can still make an impartial decision based on what is being presented to you under oath by both the appellant and staff today. So if the three of you would be able to state that on the record.
What three again?
Alder Scannell, Stoyer, and Campbell.
Okay. Alder Stoyer?
Okay, maybe I wasn't specific enough. I did speak to staff a little bit on this as well. I've read everything on this issue, so I feel that I did the research on it, and I'm willing to listen to everybody on this, so I think I can remain impartial.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Very good. Alder Scannell?
I can be impartial.
Okay. Thank you. Alder Campbell?
Well, I'm going to go in between them. So I was over, but yes, I believe I can make a impartial judgment
Okay.
on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, okay, so continuing on. The appellant in this hearing has received notice of today's proceedings. Just wanted to confirm with the clerk that Mr. Bader is present via Zoom. Can we confirm that?
Yeah,
He is, okay, perfect. And the council will either announce, its decision tonight or take the matter under advisement and have a decision at the next council meeting. The council will make a findings of fact and conclusions of law based on the record before it this evening. At this time, the following evidence has been submitted into the record already, which is the certificate of appropriateness application, the renderings of the building and proposed window specifications, the appellant's presentation materials as presented to the Landmark Commission, the partial approval, partial denial letter of the COA for 240 North Broadway, and the staff report that had been given to the Landmarks Commission. Staff and the appellant have an opportunity to present evidence, including testimony. All witnesses presenting testimony will need to be sworn in under oath, and that will be effectuated by our clerk. Evidence needs to be credible, relevant, and probative in order to be considered. The time limits will be as follows: 10 minutes for each party for main arguments, and then 5 minutes each for rebuttals. The council may ask questions of both parties during or after the presentation of testimony and evidence. The questions must be limited to strictly just, or the questioning, I should say, should be limited to just questions. Council members should not be testifying, presenting opinions, or statements. The appellant will present first, and after a motion to open the floor, followed by the city, and this will be repeated for the rebuttals. Any evidence presented will need to be admitted into evidence by a motion. Once testimony is concluded, the council will then move into closed session for deliberations. Once back in open session, again, the council will either announce its decision tonight or take the matter under advisement, and then the council will have findings of fact and conclusions of law prepared based on the record that is created this evening, and then shall adopt those findings at the next council meeting, and copies of the same will be provided to both the appellant once adopted. So at this point, I think, Mayor, we can proceed with the appellant, if Mr. Bader is ready to present, and the clerk will be able to swear him in.
Okay. And do we need to open the floor?
Yes, we need to open the floor first, correct.
Okay. Motion has been made to open the floor by Alder Steuer, seconded by Alder Scannell. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open.
Well, good evening, everyone. Appreciate your time. Can you all hear me okay?
We can. We're just waiting
can.
to be able to see you, Mr. Bader, so just 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we should be all set. Oh, yes.
Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. I would be there in person. We're not for bug I caught over the weekend. So I've got hot tea, I've got cough drops ready to go if the situation arises. But I appreciate your time.
You bet. And before we get going, I think we need to have you sworn in. So Clerk Jeffries.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Bader, just please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and then state your name,
I, Garrett Bader,
swear that the evidence I will give
swear the evidence I will give
in this action will be the truth.
in this actual meeting. We cut out there for a minute. Hopefully that was right.
So help me God.
And so help me God.
All right, thank you.
So I'm assuming that most maybe had an opportunity to review either the Landmarks Commission's meetings, both October and November, and or the information that was supplied in the packet. A lot of this will reference the renderings and the imagery that was presented there. First and foremost, I hope everyone knows I appreciate the work of the Landmarks Commission. It's not lost on me that a lot of the work that I do in the city is downtown and on Broadway. Of course, as Brian alluded to, as a member of the On Broadway board, we care about these buildings and we want to see them saved. Quite frankly, that's why myself and my partners bought this building, is to save it. For anyone who looked at the imagery to see some of the photos of the interior of a deteriorating building with loose insulation, lead-based paint, beams holding up parts of the ceiling, this building is not in good shape. The goal here is to save it. The irony, of course, is that through the two Landmarks Commission's meetings, I think they look at me as largely someone who wants to destroy it, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. What we'll see here is, I think there's a difference in opinion between what saving versus what destroying means. Landmarks Commission, if you read the ordinance, states that it's responsible with preserving the general character of a property. This is a contributing building within the district. And for those who saw the renderings and the elevation one would suggest that we're doing that. The roof detail, the second floor cornices, the bowed out windows, the brick that's there. Like, this building is going to look sharp, and what you see largely is what you get. What the Landmarks Commission will tell you is their position is that the 3 tiny windows in question that I want to replace, what they define as, quote, character defining. And in the ordinance that suggests that it's a specific character of the building that is important to a history of it. Truthfully, the only history I've heard spoken is that at one time it was a saloon. They wanted these 3 tiny high windows so no one could see what was happening inside. Now, keep in mind, we've spent millions as a city and private efforts to completely change the impression of what Broadway was for decades. Not only when that business began, but up until roughly the mid-90s. Broadway was no place you wanted to be because of nefarious and maybe derelict things going on in certain establishments. To think that we want to try and keep a harbinger of this is a little strange to me. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that at the Y a couple of weeks ago, I ran into Tom Hins. I shouldn't use his name tonight. But he said, I was a beat cop in the 70s on this stretch, and that was one of our biggest problems, was not knowing what was going on in some of these buildings. So I hope to God you get your windows. I said, Tom, I hope you're right. But I don't know why we want to try and hearken that era. More importantly than that is the importance of what Broadway has become since then. And of course, the good that is hopefully going to be coming here, knock on wood, with efforts underway. But the neighborhood, pedestrian, retail, shopping district and how vibrant it is should be more important versus any belief of the purity or importance of this one past element to the building. Another item that came up in my commission's meeting was the fear of setting precedent, that somehow an approval of this building would either damage or eliminate the ability to preserve other historic structures. I disagree. We've done this before, first and foremost. If you look at other buildings that are downtown, when you leave tonight, go past Ned Kelly's on Washington Street, go down to Kittner's on South Washington. There's a bar at 3 Corners at Main and Baird, off Cedar, actually. It's beautiful what windows can do to an old structure. It gives them life, it gives them modern energy, and it in no way detracts from their age. Whether the openings are original or not should not matter. That is another thing you may hear, is that opening windows larger than what was there ruins something. I strongly disagree, and that leads into my major final point here, is the economic neglect that happens to buildings like these when we don't allow them to breathe with time. And that is my biggest point of contention with the Landmarks Commission. Their sole focus, in my opinion, is wanting this building to maintain purity or be pure from the outside, completely ignoring the economic realities that has brought us to this point where we even are. For 40 years, if you saw those images, the second floor was mothballed as an attic. HVAC units of the first floor sat on the floor of the second floor, paint peeling, beams holding up the ceiling, birds flying in there. It was bad. And that building was in serious danger of coming down. What I'm getting at is you can't have it both ways. We can't want to be pure to the point that a building is not economically feasible today and assume that it will stay standing, because it just won't. Tenants that will pay to go in there will not do so, but the building is not of modern standards and modern attributes. Windows and transparency, one of the biggest things in a district. So I'll close with this, and it's a little bit of a personal note. I'm at the Landmarks Commission 4/5 of the way. For those who followed the rulings on it, they asked for transparency, glazing, window framing, and window openability different than what we had. That adds roughly $15,000 to $20,000 of cost on a project that was not budgeted, but as a sign of good faith, we said, okay, and we'll do that. I asked for them to meet me on white item, which was the windows, and that was refused. One commission member went so far to say that I would destroy the building by doing this. And quite frankly, that hurts. is everyone here should know I've given a lot of time and energy, money, resources, and love to this city. And I don't think there's anything I've done that has destroyed anything. And I'd like to think by now that I've earned the benefit of the doubt. That if I do something, you know it's going to be a good thing. And it's going to be a great thing for not only, in this case, the building, Broadway, downtown, but the city as a whole. So thanks for your time. As always, I'll answer any questions that come up.
Thanks for your testimony, Mr. Bader. Now time for questions from council. Any questions from our council? Alder Brunette?
First, I'll preface this by asking Attorney Bungart if this question's out of order, given the rules of this proceeding. Please stop before Mr. Bader answers. But Mr. Bader, you're an expert in this field. Obviously, you've developed a lot of projects. Do you believe that if the permission isn't granted to do what you wish, that we'll have an issue in the city redeveloping this property? Attorney Bungart, is that in bounds?
I believe it is, as the appellant did touch on the economic feasibility of the project, so it's basically clarifying that particular position.
Thank you.
Mr. Bader?
The short answer is absolutely. Again, buildings need to be able to breathe. That means that if you're going to secure tenants that can pay the rent needed to warrant the renovation to upkeep the building, those have to be in tandem. And if we were not allowing large storefront windows that help retail districts as a rule because of a perceived, the fact that they weren't there before, people aren't going to rent those spaces. You'll find somebody, it'll be a lower quality. It probably won't be a use you want. It won't warrant the effort and the resources being put into it to truly make it a Class A property comparable to any other property in the area will decline.
Okay, thank you. No other questions, Mayor?
Thanks, Alder. Other questions? Alder Starr?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Bader, for being here. You did allude to some of the buildings that were restored some years ago, some of the downtown establishments. A lot of those were done before there was a landmarks ordinance on the books. It was an advisory ordinance. So it's a little hard to, try to understand that situation in a sense, because a lot of these buildings were done under an advisory ordinance. So they did what they wanted to. So I guess I just wanted to have you speak to that. I know you were talking about some of these buildings that were done over time, and some of them did a very nice job, even if they're not historically accurate. But I just wanted you to talk to that and say, is there any credence to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's a great point, and I think it adds to what I mentioned earlier. The one argument of Landmarks Commission is that, well, there weren't windows here before, so they shouldn't be quote unquote reopened or expanded because of that. Now, the buildings you reference, okay, if those were done before Landmarks Commission, great. I would challenge anybody to go by them and say that we made a mistake. We didn't. They look beautiful, and anybody in them or that's hung out around them or walked down the street past them should look at it with pride. Say, I'm glad we did this as a city, quite frankly, knowing that we're making it too hard now to have the same effect. And if we don't change this mindset, and if others are going to have this same trouble that I've encountered here to do something which should be a no-brainer, in my opinion, it doesn't bode well for other old buildings that really could be saved and modernized, but keeping majority of their historic presence to try and keep them for the long run. It just won't.
I have another follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Bader, I know you've traveled quite a bit, and you've gone to other cities that have historic areas, historic downtowns, and there are communities out there that have fairly strict ordinances on the books that will try to maintain the integrity of that community. So I guess I'm just asking you, with some of the travels that you've done, if you've seen some of the things that you've just talked about, you know, have you seen the beauty in buildings even if they weren't correct historically? So, just another
Yeah.
question.
4 miles south in De Pere, Mark, is the place I would encourage everybody to go if the examples I gave here within the city are either lacking or one just wants to see more. But Andy Kranz in particular in De Pere has done an absolutely fantastic job with some of the old buildings on both North Broadway and Main Avenue in De Pere, truly breathing new life into them. And, you know, being a smaller city, maybe some different ordinances. I don't know how that differs largely to what we do here, other communities, but that's the easy example to go drive to and say, wow, they've done this here. Denver Square, for anybody who's been there, beautiful, but same kind of idea of preserving old, but bringing a modern vibe to it, where you throw in a glass garage door and the building pops.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions from council? Seeing, Alder Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Bader. I just have one question. I don't know if it actually applies, but would this decision being turned down affect any of your other businesses that could be possibly located in the vicinity?
Mr. Bader?
So a property like this, I guess I'll answer in 2 ways. For the immediacy of the building, do we probably lose our ground floor tenant that would be on that side? Probably. Because like most reputable establishments these days, they need the windows for their business. Does it have a downstream effect next door or in the area? You know, there's been a lot of work on Broadway that has been really good. The kind of sad reality is a lot of older buildings already have succumbed to the wrecking ball. Many have been saved. This could be an anchor for what I've termed as Broadway 2.0, along with many of the efforts we have ongoing right now. This is a building that we should champion as a cause of saving our urban spaces and these important buildings. And so if you lose this, A, your tenants may be not as good, it's lower quality. B, does that not inspire those to maybe do more next to it or down the street from it? Maybe. I hope we don't have to find out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. If there aren't any questions, Attorney Bungert, would this be the time to turn to the other party? Okay. Very good. Okay, sounds good. If staff just wants to approach the podium, or maybe not. Yeah. Yes, let's do that. Oh, okay. Swear you in.
Okay, first, Mr. Platt, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I
Jason Flatt,
thank you. Swear that the evidence I will give
swear that the evidence that I will give
in this action will be the truth,
in this action will be the truth,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you. Ms. Hummel, please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Stephanie Hummel,
Swear that the evidence I will give in this action
swear the evidence I will give this action
will be the truth,
will be the truth,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Some of you may know us. I'm Stephanie Hummel. I'm a planner with the CED department. Jason Flatt, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jason Flatt. I was a naval architect for a long time, had a hard hat, steel-toed shoes, worked in a shipyard, switched careers to historic preservation, so I've got a master's degree in historic preservation. I'm the president of the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions, and I'm a recognized expert in the field of historic preservation in the state of Wisconsin. I'm also your historic preservation specialist.
Yes.
Okay, so, indeed, we've heard from the appellant. The appellant submitted a certificate of appropriateness application for several changes to the building at 240 North Broadway. I believe 4 out of 5 of those changes were approved by the Landmarks Commission. The one sticking point is the creation of new storefront windows that necessitate the removal of historic small windows and the historic brick walls. Make no mistake about it, the building is the Felix du Chateau Saloon. It's on the National Register of Historic Places as part of a historic district, specifically because it's the Felix du Chateau Saloon building. These windows are character-defining features of the building, as are the brick walls below the windows. And that truly is the sticking point with the Landmarks Commission. So Stephanie and I met with the appellant on the 21st of September, prior to any COA application being submitted. And we discussed all of these concerns that the appellant had, including the replacement of these windows with large glass storefronts. And we pointed out that, hey, this is 100% guaranteed to be a sticking point with the Landmarks Commission. With that said, the appellant then submitted a COA, and the Landmarks Commission met and reviewed that COA application on October 19th. And indeed, the Landmarks Commission decided that the replacement of those existing windows with larger windows at that time should be tabled and discussed perhaps later at the next meeting, with the goal of coming to some, compromise solution, perhaps. Indeed, in both meetings, in the October meeting and the November meeting, the Landmarks Commission was very consistent in their application of the local municipal code, the law that governs the treatment and handling of historically designated properties. In particular, Green Bay Municipal Code states, the removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. The proposed change does the opposite. Municipal Code states, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. The proposed changes do the opposite. Exterior alterations should not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The proposed alterations do the opposite. Municipal Code also states that the Landmarks Commission shall refer to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. These things I've just read to you are verbatim from the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. The Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation are also found in 36 CFR Part 6768. That's the Code of Federal Regulations. The Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties with guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing buildings. These are all referenced by the Code of Federal Regulations, and the proposed alterations run contrary to the local municipal code, Code of Federal Regulations, Secretary of the Interior standards, and also the State Historic Preservation Office's requirements for historic rehabilitations. Again, the Landmarks Commission's been very consistent in application of these standards. The Landmarks Commission has received to date nearly 200 applications for certificates of appropriateness, and all but 4 have been approved. One of those, prior to this one, has been appealed to the Common Council. That's an option for any applicant under state statute and our local municipal code, and so that's why we're here for you tonight. What do we have here? So, again, the staff recommendation was based on municipal code, and the Landmarks Commission has upheld and acknowledged that the proposed alterations are inappropriate per municipal code, per Secretary of the Interior standards, per the Code of Federal Regulations, per Wisconsin State Historic Preservation Office. Landmarks Commission is compelled to grant and approve any COA applications unless, in the case of a designated historic structure or designated historic site, such as 240 North Broadway, the proposed work would detrimentally change, destroy, or adversely affect any exterior feature of the improvement or site upon which said work is being done. The proposed work does that. Also, a COA needs to be approved unless the proposed construction, reconstruction, exterior alteration, or demolition does not conform to the purpose and intent of this article and Division 5 of Article 2 of this chapter, or to the objectives and design criteria of the Historic Preservation Plan for said district. Indeed, the application for these proposed changes does the exact opposite of what our local municipal code is trying to avoid. Did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Next page, thank you. So, some things to keep in mind. In 2018, City of Green Bay revised its historic preservation ordinances. This was in keeping with suggestions made in the 2003 Smart Growth 2020 Comprehensive Plan. This change to the ordinance switched from a an ordinance that relies upon voluntary compliance to one where the Landmarks Commission actually requires some binding compliance, subject to appeal to the Common Council. The city's National Register properties are locally designated as historic and are now subject to this binding review and approval authority of the Landmarks Commission. In 2019, the city of Green Bay became a CLG, that's a certified local government. This is a program that the Department of the Interior oversees, and through the State Historic Preservation Office, any certified local government can apply for CLG subgrant funds. Green Bay is one of 76 CLGs in the state of Wisconsin. In the last 4 years, the city of Green Bay has been the recipient of $119,500 in these CLG subgrant funds. In order to become a CLG, we, the city of Green Bay, had to have an ordinance that required binding authority, binding approval authority of the Landmarks Commission. So that's why we switched from voluntary to a binding ordinance. Landmarks Commission is somewhat unique in the city of Green Bay because it offers significant professional expertise. Per our municipal code, the membership of that commission must include a registered architect, we have one, must include a historian, we have one, must include a licensed contractor, we have one, must include a real estate broker, we have one, and other members, two have to be citizen members that shall reside in or own a certified designated historic structure. The members of the Landmarks Commission have skin in the game. They live in designated historic districts, they have professional qualifications, and they have unanimously said the proposed alterations to this building are not in keeping with our municipal code. I mentioned CLG subgrants. The City of Green Bay has a very good working relationship with the State Historic Preservation Office that oversees that. Also, I need to point out that building owners in designated historic districts have the ability to access tax credits to help finance the rehabilitation of their buildings. That's a 20% state tax credit and a 20% federal tax credit for commercial properties. Now, if the developer uses that, that effectively means they get a 40 cents on the dollar kickback, or recoup 40 cents on every dollar spent towards qualifying rehabilitation expenses. A lot of properties in the city of Green Bay have taken advantage of that, be it the Platten Place building, Pete's Garage, the building next to Pete's Garage. Elsewhere in the city, the YMCA, Hotel Northland, Whitney School, the Meyer Theater, the former Heel/Rockstro Bakery. There's a lot that I'm forgetting, but savvy developers largely depend on access to these tax credits, and access to these tax credits is only accessible if you're in a designated historic district. Inappropriate changes in a historic district jeopardize access to tax credits. So you can think of every property owner as being in a canoe. Pardon my naval architecture-ness here. And if one property owner says, you know what, I don't want to play by the rules, these historic preservation rules, that owner's standing up in the canoe and rocking the boat. And if other owners of properties decide they want to stand up too and not play by these rules, pretty soon that canoe flips over and everybody in the canoe loses access to these tax credits. And that is devastating to future developers as they investigate rehabilitating these legacy buildings that we have in the city of Green Bay. In conclusion, thank you. This review process and denial has been consistent with all practices since the ordinance was adopted in 2018. We feel overturning this decision would set a precedence for future applicants to circumvent the Landmarks Commission and municipal code. The proposed inappropriate alterations, inappropriate by legal definition, of the storefront fenestration of the building at 240 North Broadway are a threat to the continued National Register designation of the Broadway-Dousman District, the property owner's access to preservation tax credits, and the favorable relationship between the city and the State Historic Preservation Office, the latter of which has made significant investments in Green Bay's preservation activities in the form of CLG subgrants. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Stephanie.
All right, questions, Alder Steuer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Flatt, for that. Just to clarify on your part, you're saying that if this building decides to move forward with the windows that they were looking to put in, would that effectively take it off the National Register, National
No,
Historic Register?
it would not.
It would not, okay.
Not at this time, but it could.
It
At
could.
any point, they can remove something from the National Register if they find that the historical integrity has been ruined. They can also disband districts for the same reasoning.
So how many buildings do we have in that district right now?
I think it was 12 contributing, and now it's down to 11 contributing with a 1 or 2 non-contributing. I forget, I don't have it handy.
So in essence, if this building was altered, would that become non-contributing or
It
not?
certainly could. Again, the small windows are a key character-defining feature for this property. If you read the National Register nomination text, that text speaks to the building's high integrity and its association, I believe, with Felix du Chateau, the saloon, and the building is fairly unique with its pressed brick, fine mortar lines, and the design of these small windows speaks directly to that association with Felix du Chateau and the saloon. When we look at possible delisting of something, it's really a discussion of integrity. And that integrity, historic integrity, has 7 aspects, most of which are largely compromised if the proposed alterations are allowed to proceed. So not only does it compromise the integrity of that building, but those changes also compromise aspects of the integrity of the entire district.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Alder Galvin?
So your research has shown that these 2 small windows we're talking about are original to when that building was built?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Because as I look around at a lot of the other older buildings on north, south, and both sides of that street, they all have large plate glass windows.
They do.
Through which
This is a
they,
unique feature of a building built specifically to accommodate a saloon in that corner storefront.
but many of these buildings I'm referring to were saloons at one time. At least back in 1980, when I started working down there, they were all saloons just about.
Certainly.
And my understanding is a lot of them, they were originally built as saloons.
They may have been.
So I guess what I'm asking, what I wonder, okay, you've got a building, 2 small windows so the cops can't look in and see what's going on. But allows, well, I mean, you know.
Just call it what it is, yeah.
Perhaps a housewife issue.
Yeah, so it could very well be. But you have all these other saloons, or former saloon buildings that have the large plate glass windows. How does putting a plate glass window in to an old saloon building wreck, the integrity of the building per se?
So the historic integrity, a building must maintain historic integrity in order to be eligible for National Register listing. That integrity involves things like the materials, the workmanship, the feeling, and the association. If at any point somebody makes a change to a building, that's going to impact those aspects of integrity. So in the case of some buildings that were originally built with large plate glass windows or something, well, they maintain integrity because that integrity of design has been maintained. Here, when we discuss a change, we're really talking about change management, selectively allowing good change, not allowing bad change. We have to keep in mind this historic integrity. So new windows would be a significant ding against the integrity of design, the integrity of materials, the integrity of feeling, the integrity of workmanship, because the original brick, the original mortar, that's all there. The original windows are there. You can't make a change and then say, well, I didn't impact integrity. That's just the way it works. Integrity has to be something from the historic period of significance, right? So if any building was built, say, 1900 to 1920, well, the integrity is based on its appearance from 1900 to 1920. Anything made later is something that happened outside of the period of significance and is considered to be kind of a detrimental thing from a historic preservation perspective.
If the windows, the plate glass windows that are currently on that building, both fronting on Dousman and Broadway Street, are those original to the building?
The National Register nomination text written in 1999 suggests that the window material may have been replaced on the large extant windows, but the design of the fenestration, the window openings, that was all original.
Okay. And I'm just spitballing here. If the developer, any developer, was to put in windows that looked the same as the period windows that were already in there, I understand we're still deviating from the way it was designed. Would that be less impactful?
So the Landmarks Commission has been very consistent in allowing property owners to replace windows, the window material, so long as the new windows fit the openings of what's currently there, and so long as the new windows generally are similar in design. And by that I mean, you know, if historically there was one pane of glass over another pane of glass, they don't want you to put what looks like 6 panes of glass over 6 panes of glass. So they maintain the fenestration, the size and scale of the openings, but the Landmarks Commission has been super consistent in allowing homeowners and commercial property owners to replace the window material itself. And that's already been approved here for this project as well. The Landmarks Commission gave a thumbs up to replacing the windows in the second story, and not by unanimous vote, but also approved replacing the windows as they currently stand in the first story. The only hang-up here from the Landmarks Commission perspective is cutting larger window openings. That, the Landmarks Commission has also been very consistent in saying, no, that's a red line.
This is also a very unique property. Many of our other historic buildings, they already have a lot of that infrastructure in place. They already have the window openings, they have the door openings. This is one of the only applications we've received where they want to actually cut a hole into a historic building. We don't get a lot of that because a lot of our buildings already have already been altered, or they were built for the use that was intended to be there. So we think this is an important precedent-setting item because it's showing how much we support our historic buildings, regardless of if we think, well, a couple windows won't hurt it. It does hurt the integrity of our commission, and it hurts the integrity of our code because of how this was written for the National Register. If it had been written that those windows were installed after the fact, this wouldn't even be a discussion. We would allow that replacement. But it was on the National Register because of that design.
And to elaborate just briefly, you know, the appellant has an opinion on this, and I respect that opinion, and, you know, perhaps outside of the setting, I might even agree, but frankly, the municipal code and the Code of Federal Regulations and the Secretary of Interior Standards at no point ask for my opinion. They don't ask for the appellant's opinion, you know, much like in a different section of the CFR talking about ship stability, never ask my opinion as a naval architect. It's prescriptive. It either is appropriate or it is not. This is, by that definition, inappropriate. So.
All right, thank you.
Alder Hutchison?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for your work in the Hallmark Commission. I think it's important to have emphasis on that in a city. I have some questions regarding how many of the buildings that you're concerned about that exist are commercial buildings versus home dwellings, or, you know, different than commercial.
Certainly. There are, is it 5 National Register Historic Districts in the city.
Okay.
2 of them are fairly large residential ones. There's the Astor District with 300 some odd houses. There's another residential district on the west side of the city, around 20. Oakland Dousman, thank you. So many street names. The other 3 are commercial. So there's the Downtown Historic District on this side of the city. You are currently in it. Consists of 42 buildings, I think. So that's, you know, from Hotel Northland, YMCA, the Green Bay Press Gazette, down to the Kellogg Library, that kind of stretch, including the big Bellin building, the big white one. On the other side of the river, there are 2 Broadway districts.
Broadway Dousman, Broadway Walnut.
For a total of 20, low 20s, I think. There are 2 districts there that were added to the National Register in 1999. Here I kind of feel like it's important to note, back in 1988, the city had an intensive survey done to identify eligible historic districts, and Broadway was identified at that time as a continuous historic district, eligible district. Between 1988 and 1999, there was so much destruction of historic buildings that by 99, what they had to do was create 2 smaller districts and kind of ignore what was in between. So between 88 and 99, the percentage of historic buildings lost there was fairly high, like 30% or something, so.
But we do deal with a lot of commercial buildings. I would say maybe 30 to 40% of the buildings.
Yes, and so there's a lot of individual buildings as well, like the Whitney School. There's a redevelopment of that church convent property that's underway.
Okay.
And
Okay,
in many
thank you.
cases, we help the property owner with the tax credit process, so to make the project successful.
Okay, now I recognize your concern if this is allowed to happen by the council, but codes are codes. Are there any codes related to a building that is an emergency code or something that if the code is followed, the building will be torn down? Like if you stick with this and economics will tear this building down, is there any emergency code that allows things to open up, or is it all or nothing?
Well, we do have provisions within our preservation code that if you purposefully let a building fall into disrepair as an owner, that we can file demolition by neglect against you, in which the city can step in on the owner's behalf to stabilize the building. However, that's not the case for this. This building is already underway for the renovations that need to be done. Again, 4 out of the 5 things have already been approved, and they're already inside the building doing the renovations. So this building is in no way close to being demolished. It wasn't close to being demolished prior to this owner coming into it. The interior of the structure needed a lot of work, but Historic Landmarks Commission has nothing to do with the interior. That was gonna be done kind of regardless of any of the exterior changes. So there is provision that allows for us to step in emergency situations for historic properties anyway, but this was not close to that.
Okay, and then my last question is, the bigger windows on the south side of the building are approved? The
Yes.
existing ones?
All of the existing storefront windows have been approved.
Okay, so what we're talking about are those 3 small high windows, and in the rendering of what it would look like, it looks like the extension of the existing windows on the south of the building, that same geometric pattern would be happening on the north side.
Yes.
So there's kind of a continuation of what already exists, where it's, the 3 windows would be removed and replaced.
Yes.
So
If
it's
this
kind
was
of a,
historic building, it would look very well done.
Right.
Because it has that continuation, that similar design, that linear design. It's because of the historic standing that there's the issue.
right, and so I understand the importance of the 3 small windows and the historic portion of that. But I also understand the desire to make the building functional and able to make money. And it's almost seems to me like it's in between because they're extending the bigger window dimensions, but they're also destroying those 3 small windows. I
And the
understand.
original brick, yes.
So, okay. Okay, thank you.
Alder Grant?
Have we lost any historical buildings due to them being vacant or abandoned and not redeveloped lately?
Lost isn't demolished? or-
Yeah.
Not yet. So we've only been tracking this since 2018 when the code became permanent. And there was one demolition by neglect pulled in Astor Park in which we were able to intervene, and now there's a new owner rehabbing that structure. But none have been demolished since, actually for quite a long time, but since the new ordinance has been in effect, nothing has been demolished in the historic district.
And do you know how long the second floor has been vacant for a while, is that correct? Do you know how
Yes.
long roughly it's been vacant?
I would guess at least 15 years, but I'm not sure.
Did you say 15 or 50?
15, I would
Oh,
guess.
okay.
It was occupied at some point, and it just fell into disrepair. The interior of it did.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Alder Campbell, and then Alder Morgan?
Hi, thank you for enlightening me on everything here, although I've done a lot of the research. And the one thing you've been really good about is, on your side, labeling or thorough on everything that it breaks the rules on, okay? But can you tell me the things that Mr. Bader did agree with and in detail on the ledging and the roof and the paint and the stuff like that?
The other approved projects?
Yes, because there was
Sure.
some agreement that you made along with that.
Yes, so the COA application included the replacement of the second floor windows, which was agreed upon at the first meeting. The replacement of the lower existing storefront windows, which was agreed upon at the second meeting. Some trim and paint work along both the windows and the doors, which was agreed at the first meeting. And then there's a small addition that was made on the back of the building that they're going to be rehabbing, and that was also approved at the first meeting. So there was a lot of rehabilitation that needed to be done, most of it interior, but for the exterior, everything was approved aside from the creation of the new storefronts. So all of the other windows, doors, trim work, and that rear addition all got approval.
And just to clarify, you just said that the upstairs was in disrepair. Now,
The interior, yes.
in any health situation and inspection department, they would have deemed that building unoccupiable.
The top floor was inhabitable. There were not any units available to live in. They didn't have any, it wasn't inhabitable. But it wasn't being used as that either. It's not like there were not pending code issues with that.
Okay.
Because they were not using that
And to
space.
stress, the interior buildings is beyond the scope and purview of the Landmarks Commission, so we're happy to answer those questions, but
So you're just worried about the outside
we do,
aesthetics.
per municipal code, exteriors only.
You know, it wasn't too long ago, I think they were trying to get a Walmart downtown. I just wonder how that would have changed the aesthetics of Broadway.
We can't speak to that.
I can speculate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Morgan?
That answered all my questions. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? All right. Oh, Alder Burnett.
Thank you. Thanks for laying that out. That's easier to understand. Are you aware of any publicity other than the recent media reports, any tours, anywhere that this particular building and the windows have been featured to explain why it's historical?
Well, we do have some information on our city's website. We had an intern last semester who created some story maps, so that way people could access via walking map, so they could take themselves on their own tours. But we don't have the staff or funding to really create anything outside of that, but.
Fair enough. So that would have predated the change of ownership of the building?
Yes, those were published in summer of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other questions? All right. Thanks for the work and for the testimony. Appreciate that. Now I guess we would ask the appellant if there is an interest in a rebuttal. Mr. Bader?
We go. Am I able to comment in terms of rebuttal?
Could you say that again?
Am I able to make any comment in terms of rebuttal?
Attorney Bungert?
Yes, you have 5 minutes for a rebuttal argument.
Sure. All I guess I'll really say following is that to clarify a few things that came up. The building was purchased back in May. The second floor has been vacant for what we can tell for over 40 years, 40. So it was mothballed, essentially treated as an attic. Although the Landmarks Commission, as was said, does not have any purview there, I do think that the context of the request for the outside needs to be made and what was happening inside, and the fact that the building was falling apart. No, is it going to fall down tomorrow? Of course not. But for those who saw the imagery, I think you could see that decades of neglect put it in a really bad shape. So I don't want the impression there that somehow that there's an inevitability that could never happen. No, it definitely could. And projects like this save these buildings for the long haul, hopefully another 100 years. With that, I will cede my time or answer any other questions that anybody has of me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bader. Is there an opportunity, Attorney Bungert, for questions during this period as well? Any questions
correct.
from council? Alder Eck?
Yes, I'm wondering that if you, Mr. Bader, are receiving or applying for the tax credits that they had referred to.
Not for this property. We did request and receive the TDA funds for the affordable housing for the second floor and the CDI grant from the state, which I believe is actually another item tonight.
So that's not anything to do with it being part of a historic landmark?
No, there are, as was said, many developers have taken advantage of those and they are very notable credits. At the same time, in order to do that, you are held, I would say, quite frankly, your feet to the fire to do everything that a certain organization may want you to do. And you have very little deviation room to make, in this case, what I think are very appropriate modern changes to the building. It would be absolutely out of the question with that kind of funding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alder Burnett?
Mr. Bader, were you aware of the historic feature of the windows when you purchased the property?
The three tiny ones, admittedly, no. Of the context within the district, of course, but I did not anticipate that three tiny windows would cause this kerfuffle, to be clear.
Right, so, boy, how do I say this? So I think sometimes developers could purchase a property aware of a certain feature, and they could assume that the permission would be granted to them after the fact, basically asking for, begging for forgiveness rather than asking for permission. Was that something that was done in this case? Don't know how to ask that without being offensive.
No, absolutely not. It was, and Stephanie mentioned it's true that there's demo work happening inside. There isn't rebuilding work happening yet. It's all demolition. So it's clearing out the second floor from everything that was seen there in those photos. It's removing partitions and shoring up load-bearing points, which quite frankly are many and odd in this property. That is the work happening, and that needed to happen regardless, seeing those photos. So from here, hypothetically, if something were turned down, well, I think the second floor apartments can still happen, but does the commercial space on the first floor ever truly get to that status that we want as a district in a downtown? I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Alder Campbell?
Mr. Bader, I'm sure in your development and in our talk, I know we didn't talk about it at all, or I haven't seen any kind of material saying what kind of tenant might be going in there, whether it be retail or tavern or anything. I would just like you to clarify that and state, whether or not you're trying to keep it open, or does it have a deliberate tenant option?
Yeah, the corner space has been spoken for. It is a tenant that I would describe as Class A, already existing in a different municipality, but wants to be downtown and wants presence and definitely wants the windows, and has not been shy in saying that if they did not have the windows, they're likely going. Now, could one always try to find another tenant? Absolutely. I don't want to try and hold this council hostage. As I said, the Landmarks Commission, I would never be that person that would threaten a building like this because I want to see it preserved. But that's just simply a reality that without these modern elements, your Class A tenants will not come to it, and the building will not realize its full potential.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Alder Morgan.
Was there some mention, I thought I read something about by code, a door has to be changed, and is that something that affects these windows, or is that just something else?
The door you're probably referencing is the northeast corner of the building, the residential exit stairway door out to Dousman Street for that code compliant egress point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything further from council? Any rebuttal from staff?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that without these windows, this project is definitely very viable. There are plenty of existing storefront windows, and based on the applications that we received for this and also for other things within my department, it was established that 2 commercial users will be on the lower level. With the existing storefronts along Broadway and along Dousman, they could easily configure with keeping that wall having storefronts for both of those users. So I don't want there to be this impression that there will be a small unwindowed user within that structure. That's only going to happen if the developer makes that happen. There's definitely the availability to have additional windows. And Mr. Bader was aware that this was on the historic district, as he said. With most people, actually all people that have COA applications coming up, if they have any questions about how the process works or what would be acceptable, we recommend that they meet with us ahead of time, ahead of even purchasing the building sometimes. So that way they can get a really good reality check on what the code would entail, what our process would be, and that didn't happen here. He met with us prior, he decided to still go forward with it, with the expectation that it would get denied, and hopefully that you all would be the body to help him get it approved. So he was very aware of that process throughout, and I just want to make you aware of that, that it is on the property owner, regardless of if it's historic or not, to understand the codes in which they'll be working with when redeveloping the property. So that opportunity was there. Thank you.
Any questions? Alder Camel?
And what is your status? What department? Staff?
Community and Economic Development.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Entertain a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion to close the floor made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Attorney Bunkert?
Yes, now that all the testimony has been presented and evidence has been presented, the council can move into closed session for deliberation. So a motion will need to be made and the language will need to be read.
Motion to move into closed session.
Motion made by Alder Scannell,
Second.
seconded by Alder Brunette. Alder Scannell, do you have the language?
I do in a second. The council may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.85, subsection 1, subsection A, Wisconsin statute, for purposes of deliberating concerning a case which was the subject of voting. It just, my screen got blocked by vote for current item.
Oh.
Sorry, yes. Learning.
Text is on there, straight from that.
Click
Oh,
behind it.
okay, I didn't see the text, okay, all right,
Of any judicial?
For quasi-judicial trial or hearing before that governmental body. The council will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 2 Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda.
All right, we have a motion and a second on that. Alder Brunette?
Yeah, Attorney Bungert, just for the sake of the public, when we have these sorts of hearings, historically, we have almost, if, probably always have gone into closed session. This is completely appropriate to do so.
Correct.
Okay.
all deliberations.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and on this vote, I believe we need to use the board?
Yes.
So we will, yes. I guess we did hear that.
No, you can't.
So please vote. To go to closed session.
Go to closed session. Yeah. Close your eyes and do it.
It helps me out here with my snacks. You might want to take your own little bag with you.
I'm gonna save on my email, I don't trust you.
And that motion is successful with one abstention. So we will convene in closed session. I will entertain a motion to return to regular order of business. Alder Scannell makes the motion to return to regular order, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we are back. Attorney Bunkert, can you read the
Yes.
the proposed motion?
So the recommended motion is for to hold the hearing over for continuation to another date and to direct the parties, meaning staff for the Landmark Commission and the appellant, Mr. Bader, to submit written briefs to address The issues and the legal elements contained specifically in section 44-1555, guidelines for renovation of existing buildings within the Green Bay Municipal Code, in context with the proposed work and the certificate of appropriateness application.
Is that your motion, Alder Eck?
Yes.
Alder Eck makes that motion and seconded by Alder Stoyer. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, and that motion is approved. And in terms of the scheduling, for that meeting, we'll be in touch with both parties to,
Yes, we can find an appropriate time that will work for both parties to be able to submit the briefs and when the council will reconvene on the continuation of the hearing.
okay. Very good. Thanks again to law department staff and everyone concerned in that process. We are now on to the report of the Improvement and Services Committee.
Motion to approve.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve the report of the Improvement and Services Committee from December 14, 2022. Any items here to be held separately? Alder Shore. Number 3. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 3.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell. Seconded by Alder Stoyer. The item was pulled by Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did defer to Director Grenier on this.
Director Grenier?
Okay, on page 65 of the packet, we have the 2023 proposed rates for monitored and unmonitored customers. I'm sorry, this would actually be for item 2, not 3. It's my mistake, Alder Stoyer.
Oh, okay. That's what you told me.
Okay, so we have,
Can we read?
So we'd have to reconsider.
yeah, we have a motion
Pull
to
two.
approve in a second, so all in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Entertain a motion to reconsider L2.
Motion to reconsider L2.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to reconsider L2, seconded by Alder Campbell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are on L2. Director Grenier?
Okay, so with that, again, on page 65 of the packet, near the bottom of the sheet, for monitored customers, section 3 sub C, sub 2 sub D, sampling charge. The sample charge rates that are listed there are actually the 2022 rates. We have a 5-year monitoring program with Badger Laboratories, and these are pass-through rates that go to our monitored customers, so Georgia Pacific, Procter & Gamble, Tucka Lake wastewater treatment samples to determine what the strength loading of that wastewater is being discharged to new water. The sample collection rate for 2023 should actually be $15. The analysis is 50 for a total of 65 instead of 57, and the sampler rental should be $40 per day instead of 35.
Okay, is there an amendment to that effect?
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stoyer. Any additional comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Motion to approve is
The ayes
amended.
have it. Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve item L2 as amended. That was seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. On to protection and policy.
Motion to approve.
Alder Hutchison? Yes,
Was it number 4?
we did, and then we reconsidered L2.
Okay.
Yeah. You bet.
Motion to approve.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve the report of the Protection and Policy Committee from December 12, 2022. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Galvin. Any items here to be handled separately? Number 4, any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of that report will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved with the exception of item 4.
Motion to approve.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to approve item 4.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Weary. And that was pulled by Alder Eck. Or Alder Galvin. Alder Galvin, go ahead.
I'd like to open the floor for interested parties to speak.
Alder Galvin makes a motion to open the floor.
Motion to approve.
Second. Seconded by Alder Sawyer. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the floor is open. So if our guests could approach the podium, and then just state your name and address for the council, and you can begin your testimony.
All right, thank you much. My name is Steve Preisler, live at 826 South Baird Street. I sent everyone a package, which was well-written and entertaining, I think, concerning a series of bills issued to me by the city of Green Bay. I think they're a bit excessive, to put it mildly. About 18 months ago, my residence was listed as a nuisance address. I had different housemates at the time. Anyway, I dealt with that subject in the package itself. I'll move on to some other points here. There are a series of enumerated triggers for being listed as a nuisance address. They are harassment, disorderly conduct, battery, lewd, lascivious behavior, prostitution, theft, receiving stolen property, arson, possessing, manufacturing, distributing drugs, gambling, animal violations, noise, conspiracy, arrest or search warrants, alcohol violations, and resisting obstructing officers and city inspectors where police are called. Well, none of these things directly pertain to my house. It's a series of calls that were generated by my neighbor across the driveway. They don't have jobs, they're jobless dopes. Just busybodies, calling in suspicious persons and things like that. So the definition isn't met here, actually, for the ordinance. They also use the city building inspector to come and harass me nonstop. There's been over 100 of these various things pointed out over a period of time. I put pictures of my place in the photo gallery section. I hope everybody took a look at them, you know, and well, he comes and inspects my place. He misses the most glaring violations, such as a fence that my neighbors had that was leaning roughly 30-degree angle there all the while. Windstorm comes along, blows it into my yard, takes out a 10-foot section of my own fence. Well, that just gets ignored while probing and pointing at me at the behest of my neighbors across the driveway, 2 jobless dopes. Nothing to do with the time except poke their nose in what I'm doing. And I think this council should take a look at this matter and say, this is unreasonable to have this guy, the city building inspector, come, gotta be 100 different items over the past 2 years. He's done at the behest of my neighbor across the street. Eventually you reach the point where you just start ignoring the darn thing. This summer, my 2014 Jeep sat in my driveway for a period of almost a month while the keys were missing. The person had run off with them, they were returned. Well, there was a 72-hour notice put on my Jeep saying, it's gonna be towed away as it being in an abandoned vehicle or something like that. Well, the key was just in somebody else's possession. I was riding my bicycle all the time anyway, so it didn't bother me too badly that my Jeep wasn't going up and down the road at the time. I've since gotten rid of the darn thing. But we take a look at the other yards in the neighborhood as they detail in the narrative, in that 4 pages of things. These are much more glaring examples of violations than what I have going, which is like attach your downspout and that sort of stuff. Well, for Christ's sakes, come on, get real. I'd like you to consider this. I hope everybody read the 4 pages of text that went along with it, and then the photo gallery and his assortment of bills. These are just the latest ones. Yeah, high tide. This, I think, is a bit out of line, and I hope and pray that you'll reconsider his billing process, for all these things that I put in the package, because they're still coming, and I hope that you'll reconsider this and stop the billings and get me off that nuisance property list, because I don't miss the definition here of the enumerated causes and triggers. I'd like to take a look at that, and I hope you'll vote my way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Preisler, for the testimony. Any
Sure.
question? Alder Scannell?
Were you aware that we took care of this at committee and you did not show?
I was
there-
working overtime. There was a leaking tank at my place of employment where I work overtime regularly, virtually every day. And when I got there at 6 o'clock, as the committee was letting out, somebody said, hey, you were on the schedule for tonight? I said, yeah, a few minutes late because the tank was leaking at my day job and I couldn't make it. I did send everybody a package.
Right, right. So if we sent this back to committee, because I think it'd be good to have staff on there to address some of these and talk this through instead of doing the work on the floor here,
Yeah.
would you be able to make the next protection?
Yes, I will make sure that there's not a leaking tank at my plant.
Well, if something does happen, notify us.
Yes.
And then we can hold it instead of,
Yes.
so if something comes up.
I was coming in the door at 6 PM as everybody was coming out
Oh,
at roughly 6
okay.
PM.
Well, thank you then. I'll just make a motion to refer back to staff and we can take care of this at the committee.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alder. Attorney Kochar, did you have something?
Well, I was just gonna say that I can verify he did come in shortly after 6 o'clock, and I had informed him that our committee meeting had adjourned. He was late, and he said the same thing, that his tank had an issue at work.
It's a thankless job sometimes.
For sure.
Alder Steuer makes a motion to close the floor. Seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Alder Scannell.
Yeah, a motion to refer this back.
Second.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to refer this item back to Protection and Policy Committee, seconded by Alder Campbell. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes have it, and that item has been referred back to committee. Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any names here to be handled separately, or any abstentions? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. On to the Finance Committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens. Items here to be handled separately? Seven. Any, yes.
Just an abstention noted on item 4.
Alder Johnson notes an abstention on item 4.
Yeah, it's tied to item K.
Very well. So item 7 will be handled separately. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved with the exception of item 7.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Steuer. That was pulled by Alder Grant. Weary? Alder Weary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and a lot of my questions might be more appropriate in closed session. I just, we can start there. I mean, my question is, why are we doing this now and how will we approach? Because I think the lease is in place for another 10 years. How did that, initiate and what's being asked of us?
Sure.
We can discuss it now, that's great. That's fine.
Could it be enclosed?
I'm asking for guidance.
Attorney Bungert.
I'll discuss as much as open as possible.
Yes, so I believe the appropriate thing would be to go into closed session to kind of discuss the details of that in this particular engagement.
All right, yeah, that's fine. I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Alder Weary makes a motion to go into closed session, seconded by Alder Scannell. Alder Weary, do you have the?
You bet I do. The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.851E Wisconsin statutes for purpose of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The committee will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to Section 19852 Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session if appropriate and to consider the remainder of the agenda.
All right, thank you, Alder Weary. We will use the board to vote on that motion.
Thank you, you may vote.
All right, and that motion succeeds unanimously, so we will go to closed session.
Yes.
Entertain a motion to return to regular order of
Motion to
business.
return to the regular order of business.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to return to regular order of business, seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are back. We do,
Proceed as directed in closed session.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to proceed as directed in closed session. That was seconded by Alder Weary. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. On to Park Committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell. Seconded by Alder Johnson. Items here to be handled separately. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that report is approved. On to Personnel.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell. Seconded by Alder Johnson. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Public Arts.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Johnson. That's to approve the report of the Public Arts Commission. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Equal Rights Commission.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Scannell. Seconded by Alder Johnson. Any items here to be handled separately? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. On to our informational item, that's a municipal court report for November 2022 for your reference. On to resolutions.
Motion to suspended the rules.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to suspend the rules, take up these resolutions with one roll call vote. Seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Johnson, and here we will use the board.
Thank you. You may vote.
And those resolutions are adopted unanimously. On to ordinances first reading.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to suspend the rules and take up these ordinances with one roll call vote. It was seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended.
Motion to advance.
Alder Scannell makes a motion to advance all of these ordinances. That was seconded by Alder Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Petitions and communications. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn it.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Scannell. Seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks, everyone.